The situation between the Belize Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education remains tense. Today, as the Orange Walk branch of the union met Minister of Education Patrick Faber, held a press conference to discuss the ongoing issues of the deferment of salaries. Minister Faber stated that a letter was sent to the Prime Minister outlining the issues that are prompting the teachers to take industrial action, and those issues have moved beyond the 3% salary increase demands they had at first. Minister Faber discussed the situation.
A letter was also sent to the Prime Minister indicating that this is from the BNTU, and it referred to the Stand Up for Belize campaign. And that campaign, the President and the Executive Secretary writes in this letter, will be sustained, and they give the Prime Minister a deadline to address certain issues which they claim are very important to them. I was told of a flyer, although I confess that I have not seen the flyer, where the teachers have put out that says basically that this is not about the 3%, that it is about all the other issues. Last week, Thursday's meeting of the BNTU with its branches across the country was not supported by the ministry. Even though we did not take any measures to penalize anybody, it was not supported, as I understand it, by many of the managements as well, because we believe that the union did not act according to the procedures that should have been put in place.
Minister Faber went on to restate that salary increases had been discussed and agreed on by the Prime Minister, but the damages that Hurricane Earl had left behind caused that money to be used to help the victims.
The final figure for this last tranche was determined 1 week or so before the hurricane. And in fact, the financial secretary, as you will hear the Prime Minister say, shook hands with the unions and agreed this is the final payment, and the government was fully prepared to pay that payment. Enters Hurricane Earl, and then it is as a result of that and the immediate spending that the government had to do. The monies were already allotted, the monies were already put aside.
In the letter sent to the Prime Minister, the teachers make a list of concerns that are causing them to take to the streets on Monday. They state that they have become concerned over matters of increasing corruption in the government. Minister Faber stated that the government is acting to find solutions to the issues that have arisen, citing the audit report and the much disputed bicameral committee proposed to investigate that report.
I don't want to take anything away from the teachers in terms of them wanting to fight for good governance. I think every citizen of our nation deserves that right to afford themselves that opportunity. That's not what we're saying here. We're asking in return, asking back. Is it that the government is doing absolutely nothing? Even recognizing that there is this report, even recognizing that the government takes a position that things could have been handled a bit differently, that there are some unfair accusations in the report coming from the Auditor General, the process might not have been followed. I am pretty sure that I've heard the Prime Minister make some concessions, even give an apology to say that things did not go 100% correct. In fact, things may have gone very wrong in a lot of instances that the Auditor General points out in that report.
If the worst-case scenario of strike were to occur, how prepared is the government and how would they respond?
If the teachers were to take drastic measures, if they were to strike, what would be the government's response?
Well, that is left to be seen. We don't know. I don't know that they necessarily will. You've heard I've heard from the release that there's a release or a flyer of some sort that the BNTU put out to say that they are waiting to hear back from the Prime Minister. I think that now that he has written back, they may well concretize whatever plans they're having. But they're saying certainly whether the Prime Minister answers or doesn't answer, he has answered. But regardless of what the answer is, they will go on a rally on Monday.
Minister Faber stated that the Prime Minister had agreed to meet with the leaders of the BNTU, but they turned down that meeting. The estimated amount due to the teachers is estimated at around $12 to $13 million. As we mentioned earlier, President of the BNTU, Luke Palacio, was in Orange Walk Down for a meeting with the Orange Walk branch. Later in our newscast, we will have the details of how that meeting went. When it was announced that a commission would be formed to look at public morality, there were a number of questions as to the committee's mandate and jurisdiction. Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber, who will head that committee, clarified what the commission is all about.
I will say that I was not in the initial meeting between the Prime Minister, the government, and the churches. But the main concern coming from the churches in that meeting and in the Friday meeting was that the church felt that it could play a greater role in advising the government, in giving its views on certain things, not limited to any one area. But you will understand that given the Chief Justice's ruling and given some of the noise that was in the air at the time, that this had to be one of the issues that they saw to be needed first on the agenda of this entity that has been referred to as the Morality Commission, that I choose to term in the interim as the Church State Commission. That body, as I understand it, is aimed at merely continuing the dialogue, to make sure that the dialogue between the church and the state is continuous, and that the church always has a conduit to give the government what its views are on varying issues, including public morality.
Deputy Prime Minister Faber also spoke about the influence that the commission would have over public morality issues.
How much influence would you say the church would have in governing or regulating issues that they perceive have to do with morality?
Well, that's another point that I am hoping will come up on our September 26th meeting with the churches. Because while we are yet to work out the terms of reference for the commission, the Church State Commission, and while we have to work out the composition, doesn't matter what the composition is, and I am hoping that all will understand that while we are engaging the major stakeholder of the church in this way, it cannot mean, not even if all of us would have wanted it that way, it cannot mean that will be the body that will be the end it all in terms of policy making and decision making for this country. That job is reserved for the cabinet.
Faber stated that after a meeting with Caleb Orozco this morning, he agreed that minorities should also have a commission to represent them in government matters.
It is my personal view that, in fact, if we are to make decisions for all the citizenry of this country, that if we are going to give an opportunity to the church to have that kind of Church State Commission that will allow for that dialogue to flow, then we should also give that opportunity. The church is a much larger stakeholder group, and so there might be the need for more consultations because there's so many branches of the church. But in their instance, it might not be the need might not be there to meet us, and I have no idea how regularly this proposed commission would meet. But I said to Caleb this morning, I don't see a problem with meeting once or twice a year, or depending on what the agenda is of those minority bodies, for them to merely say to the government, this is how we are feeling, this is what we want you to do as our government.
The first meeting between the Deputy Prime Minister and the church leaders will be held on September 26th.